What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Take Talk Sports podcast here with another video. Today is going to be a fun one. I haven't made a video like this basically at all, so it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. Today's video is all about soccer, or as I'm going to call it in this video, just to get it out of the way, I'm going to call it football in this video, but just so you know, I am talking about soccer. Now, this video is about why I love soccer and why I think you should too. So basically, my motivation for this video is I recently, in the past year, have gotten really into football, and I think it's a ton of fun to watch, and I think a lot of people would enjoy it as well, specifically people in the U.S. who don't know as much about it, if they just knew more about it. I think a lot of people are apprehensive, and for good reason, and I'm going to get into those reasons today, talk about why I love it, talk about why you should love it too. So first things first, I'm gonna get into a little bit of basic info about football before I get into it, just to lay down a baseline, because I know I've talked about it a little bit in some sports update videos, but just to help people understand a bit more, here's some basic info. So first things first, there are many different leagues in many different countries. This is just a small little cutout of Europe. Basically, every country in Europe and basically every country throughout the almost entire world has a football league in its country. And just to simplify it for this video, I am going to be specifically focusing on the Premier League, and that is generally what I focus on in my personal life anyway. But all leagues are interesting and they all have a bunch of players. And of course, I will get into that a bit further. But just so you know, the Premier League is that one, the red England. It is England's football league. Outside of what we call the domestic leagues, which are those country leagues, there are bigger competitions like the Champions League, which is the best teams from all these countries go and play for the Champions League. And then outside of that, there are, of course, international competitions, which are competitions that I'm sure you've heard of, like the World Cup. Um, so that's a little baseline. Now, I'm going to get into some of the main reasons why I personally love football, and maybe you agree with these reasons, and this may get you interested, but I'm just going to talk about some of the reasons that I like it and some reasons I think you should too. First things first, one thing that gets me really interested in any sport is players with amazing specific ability. Um, so, kind of, for example, in the NBA, a guy that gets a lot of attention is Curry because of his threes. People watch Curry because they want to see him pull up from the logo and hit a three, or LeBron. They want to see LeBron's athleticism and his dunking, or Luka and his step backs, or Giannis and his athleticism. Another example is the NFL. People watch Mahomes and Russell Wilson for their crazy plays on the run, or Tyreek Hill for his speed, or Derrick Henry for his strength. For me, that's a big attraction to any sport, and football has that in excess. For example, just to use two guys that you've probably heard of, Messi, at any point in the game could shoot from any range and possibly make it. And a guy like Ronaldo, as you can see in this image, has amazing athleticism and power, and you could see that on display at any second. And those are the most common, and I'm using those as examples of guys that you've hopefully heard of. But there are so many players on every team that could do anything at any second. There's a guy who could hit a long shot any second, a guy who could jump up and make an amazing tackle at any second, and that's a big attraction for me. That's what gets me into most sports is the potential to see something amazing. And football again has that in excess. It's got the chance to see crazy shots you've never seen before, or crazy endings because of how the scoring works, which I will get into in a little bit here. And another one of the main reasons that really makes me like football is the international competitions, because it adds an extra layer to everything. It's like a secondary competition, just but almost in a totally different league, because the teams are almost as default, and it's for a country, so it creates pride, and it just creates another extra team for you to support, an extra competition for there to be in there. And that's just another big reason for me why I personally love the sport. Now, the biggest reasons for me why I love football are its rich history and the many icons that it has. One of my favorite things, along with player ability, that really gets me into any sport is the history of the players and of the sport. And I'm not sure there's a sport in the world that has a richer history than football. Because of reasons already said, the many countless countries that have football cause so many players to play, and there's so many stories everywhere. And just the rich history, it's just something really that I love learning about with any sport, and I think it's something really interesting that gives football its base that can attract new fans. Another big reason why I love football is the unrelenting passion that comes from the fan bases. When you join a fan base of a team, obviously not so much in the past year with fans not being at a game, but if you see any highlights of big goals or World Cups, you see what's up here. You see crowds yelling and cheering in massive stadiums for their teams. Even the smallest countries have massive football stadiums because of the popularity of the sport, and it just causes such an amazing passion that's infectious to be a part of such a fan base, and you really love it to see your teams win and perform well. It has such an impact to have such an awesome fan base and such an awesome fan experience in a sport. And there's hundreds of thousands of fans for every individual teams, and the passion that it creates is contagious, like I said before. And that again leads to the international teams being another wrinkle that adds so much, because the international teams create national pride, and it creates just that much more passion in a fan base for your team to win. You want your country to win. You're not just rooting for your local football team, you're rooting for your country. You want your country to be the best. And it's just, even the USA is starting to be better in competitions and really compete. And so I think that'll help a lot. But if you just get behind a country and get behind a team, you'll see the passion that the fan bases have. And it truly is an amazing thing to be a part of. Along with the fan bases is the larger than life icons that the sport creates that even non-football fans know about. Over here, you can see Pele. He's a guy that, even if people don't know about him, most people have heard the name Pele. A lot of people have heard the name Maradona. They may not know about him, but they've heard about him just because of how massive they are. And I think everybody knows Messi and Ronaldo, two guys that are obviously still playing, but are already larger than life icons. And that's, again, I talked about how I love to learn about the history, and the plentiful icons in this sport is, a never ending stream of amazing, unbelievable stories, and fascinating stories to learn about that I don't know that you get it in many other sports. Just countless icons with unbelievable stories and documentaries seemingly on all of them that are all as interesting as the next. And it really is a point that is just is it's amazing to me. And it really gets me interested for a sport that has such a grand history and so many icons, that become larger than life. And it's really an amazing thing to see a sport do. And I think it's because of that massive fan base that I've already talked so much about. Now, those are some of the biggest reasons that I think should attract people to get to it. But if you're still a bit on the edge of your seat, or still think you wouldn't be interested in the sport and are wondering, what can you do to get into it, or what do you need to know that'll make it worth getting into? And I think the biggest hang up for most people is the lack of scoring. Now, that's a big point that I want to talk about. Is to get into football, you have to change sort of your idea of what scoring is. In football, a lack of scoring does not mean a lack of action, which I think is the big misconception. Most people think, oh, there's 0-0, 0-1 games, there must be nothing going on in them. And that's why I think it's important to change your idea of what scoring is. For example, in the NBA, I'm going to use an example of runs. Kind of like if you're in a football match and you're down 1-0, say, and your team creates a big chance, they get a near miss or a really beautiful pass that doesn't get finished, or there's a slick passing move and your guys get close to scoring and your team get close to scoring. I would compare that in the NBA to a run. Say a team is down 10, they cut it to 3 real quick on a 7-0 run. They're not winning yet, but they've just made such a move. They're now looking better. They're in a better position. Their team is playing better. That's a bit what I'd compare it to. Now in a sport like basketball, the score has changed and you score 7 and you're closer to winning. In football, the score doesn't change, but it's a very mental and visual thing. If you're watching, you can tell the team starts playing better, and it's a moment of suspense, and you want your team to score, and so a chance like that is something that creates intrigue. So I would compare big chances like runs or a good drive in the NFL, things like this. Where in football points don't necessarily come from that, but it in a way is like scoring, and that's why somehow you have to change your kind of idea of what scoring necessarily is. And again, things that get people to watch like NBA and NFL are like big dunks or big threes or deep throws or jukes. And there is plenty of that in football that is also a big attraction. Things like slick skill moves or impressive passes or long shots and near misses are things that when you can learn to appreciate and understand what it is doing towards scoring, it is just as impressive as big dunks or big threes or long throws or juke moves. And that's why I think it is an understandable hangup is the low scoring, but you do have to understand kind of what is progression in the sport of football compared to bigger sports like the NBA and NFL. And that's why all those little things that don't necessarily create points, when they do, when those skill moves and those slick passing moves and just impressive moves and a deep long shot or a curling ball around the keeper goes in the goal and you do score, that's why it leads to massive celebration and massive scenes and relief and so many feelings, like you can see and hear probably coming after a goal. It's just so much passion comes out after a goal, and when a goal does score, it is truly amazing. And that is kind of, you have a downside of less frequent scoring, but then when they do score, it's so much emotion and relief and passion. And it also, that's what creates the potential for crazy finishes. A team could be playing like losing the whole game, suddenly they score a goal in the 90th minute and they've sent it to extra time. It's just something that is an extra wrinkle that is different than other sports, but that does not mean it's bad. And I think that's a very important thing to know. And it's an understandable hang up to see the lack of scoring. But again, for all the reasons that I've said, it is, just an amazing sport to get into. And I really think more people should get into it. And if you do have any questions or interest in where you should watch or what you should watch for, just feel free to ask me in the comments. Because that is it for this video. Those are my main reasons. I feel very passionate about them. And I do think if you're not already into it, or have at least tried to get into it, I think you should just watch a highlight video from a World Cup. And I promise you, you will see what I'm talking about, and you will see the passion that I now share with so many football fans around the world. That's it for me, guys. Thank you for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed. If you want to see other videos like this, please let me know down in the comments. Or if you have other video ideas, let me know down in the comments. I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.